One of the powerhouse officials in the White House is Communications Chief Anita Dunn. She recently announced she'd be stepping down. Before she leaves, she sat down with me at the Bloomberg Washington Summit to discuss politics and life at the White House. What's been the Obama administration's most successful communication triumph, and I guess what's disappointed you the most?
It always starts with the president and his speech to the joint session of Congress when he returned, when Congress returned from their August work period. The speech on health care, which really did redefine the issue, which gave the momentum that I think you're seeing today as we're closer to having health reform passed than any time in the last 70 years.
Biggest disappointments?
I wish that we had earlier put more attention and resources into building our online community in the White House, which is something we did extremely successfully in the campaign. Now we have started, and we have some incredibly talented people over there, and I think people are starting to see some of the interesting and different things that we're doing with that website, that we're doing with online communities, some of the interesting ways that we are using that to reach out and engage the American people.
Definitely. Let me follow up on some of that, but first I want to ask you about a comment yesterday by that well-known above the fray analyst Karl Rove, who said that the narrative the White House is writing is, quote, they are uncompromising, ungracious, and ready to run roughshod over public opinion. They've mastered the Chicago way of politics.
Well, gee, Karl. You know, at times like this, you know, as the mother of a boy who only recently hit his teen years, I'm always tempted to fall back on something profound like, I am rubber, you are glue. But, I mean, the reality is that I think that if you look at the Obama White House, what you see is, and the American people have seen this, you see a president who has really gone to extraordinary lengths to reach out to people who don't agree with him, and to make sure that people who don't agree with him have their voices heard in this process. That we, and I certainly think in contrast to the previous 8 years, and I know that Karl takes great umbrage anytime we mention the fact that there was actually a president who preceded Obama, who might have done things in 8 years a little differently than we did. We are running this transparent and very accountable administration. That was not the case when Karl Rove was calling the shots in the White House for 8 years.
Let me ask you about your famous broadside against Fox News.
Absolutely.
Was that just Anita Dunn talking, or was that something you and Rahm Emanuel and David Axelrod planned ahead of time?
Well, Al, I am not exactly one known for going rogue, to use a popular phrase these days. The reality is that and you know this, the media environment in this country has changed so dramatically over the last decade that what we traditionally think of as news organizations, or what traditionally are news organizations, everything has changed so much. I'll give you one fact, actually fun fact from this week, is that a opinion show on a certain news network was using edited footage to make it appear that a rally last week in political opposition to the president was much larger than it appeared. Some of you may have heard about this. That the people who went in and did the fact-checking on that and actually exposed this as kind of spliced, edited video that was designed to make it appear that more people oppose the president than really do, the people who exposed this, Jon Stewart on The Daily Show on Comedy Central. Okay? Well, that's where you're getting, fact-checking investigative journalism these days, folks. It is a different media environment. And the reality is that, let's face it, we're under no illusions about what the political agenda of, certain news networks are.
Does MSNBC have a political agenda too?
It's interesting because that, of course, is what gets thrown back. And obviously, your friend Karl Rove, who you quoted earlier, declared war on them during the previous administration, and you may recall that Fox actually applauded Karl for doing that. Now, I will say this, MSNBC has as their host of their morning program a former Republican congressman who was a member of Newt Gingrich's Revolution, that I think...
so you think they're different than Fox?
Well, but I also think that their opinion shows, their opinion shows absolutely have an opinion, but I do regard them as different as a network, absolutely.
On this, was President Obama aware ahead of time that you were going to criticize Fox?
I am not a person who is known for going rogue.
Okay.
Okay?
Right. I think
but we also don't discuss internal decisions.
The president apparently is going to give an interview to Fox in China. Does that mean there's a detente now?
You know, we have on past foreign trips often done what are called round robins, which are short interviews with all of the networks that travel with us. We have not made any decision yet on whether or not we're going to do those. There are no confirmed television interviews in China. And if, some network sent out a press release announcing that that was going to happen, well, you know, I think you have to ask about that network and, you know, whether or not they really had their facts confirmed before they did that.
Anita, you were a valued and influential, or are a valued and influential advisor, confidant of President Obama. But with your departure, the inner circle, with the exception of Valerie Jarrett, looks like kind of that middle-aged white guy network again. Rahm and David Axelrod and Robert Gibbs and your successor, Dan Pfeiffer. When you have the real inner get-together, it really is kind of that old tail-snapping network, isn't it?
I think Dan and Robert are a little young for the middle-age thing here.
That's
so
true.
I'm defending them, okay?
I'll correct that.
You know, one of the things that's striking to me, Alice, as one who has been active in Democratic politics and in Washington, D.C. for nearly 3 decades, is how different this White House is and how much things have changed in terms of women in politics. And I look at health care, and I see Nancy M. DeParle, who, interestingly enough, was also an intern in the Carter White House. And I didn't know that, excuse me, until recently. I look at Carol Browner, who is helping to coordinate the energy and climate change policy. You know, I look at Valerie, who at the end of the day is, you know, not just doing the Office of Public Engagement and a senior advisor, but is, you know, easily one of the most influential people in the entire government.
Is the president disappointed that he hasn't been able to change the tone in Washington?
I think he would have loved to have been able to change more of the tone. I think at the end of the day, there's only so much he can do, and I think he feels that and we all feel, that we've done a tremendous amount to change the tone and also to change the way Washington works.